Hello everyone, my name is Sarafi and I'm happy to meet you all. I gotta say, I was expecting this deck to be fun. I was not expecting this deck to be good. And I hit King of Games with this deck. It took a bit. It took me about 4 hours. But I literally have never played this deck. I built it in one day and I shot up to King of Games. And I gotta tell you, this deck is way stronger than it looks. It's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend building it if you guys are already going into this box. The skill is called Immortal Sun God. You can only special summon the Winged Dragon of Ra and monsters containing that card name during duels where this skill is used. Each of the following effects can be used once per duel. You can send one the Winged Dragon of Ra or a card containing that name from your hand to the graveyard and either add one Winged Dragon of Ra or a card containing that name or Monster Reborn from the deck to your hand or send it to the graveyard. So what you want to do with this skill is, if you have all the necessary pieces in your hand, and we'll go over what those pieces are, then you want to send a card that you need in your graveyard from your hand to the graveyard. Then you want to send Dark Spell Regeneration from your deck to the graveyard. And if Dark Spell Regeneration is in your hand, toss that and get something else, either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. If you don't have everything you need, you're going to send a card that you want in your graveyard to draw a card that you need in your hand. The second part of the skill is add one monster reborn from your graveyard to your hand if you have a Winged Dragon of Ra or a Divine Beast monster containing that name on your field. Banish the Winged Dragon of Ra sphere mode on your field that was not special summoned during this turn at the end of your turn. So this allows you to stall on sphere mode one time. Once. You can't stall on sphere mode for the whole game. As soon as sphere mode comes out, if you didn't special summon it this turn, well, it goes away. That's okay though. This deck is all about OTK, and they just don't want you to use this skill in the deck where you stall forever, which is fine. Now, let's talk about the main deck. Our only monster that we do anything with. The Winged Dragon of Ra Immortal Phoenix. Cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by its own effect, cannot be special summoned in other ways. If the Winged Dragon of Ra is sent from your field to the graveyard while this card is in your graveyard, special summon this card. That is not optional. Cards and effects cannot be activated in response to this effect's activation. This card is unaffected by other cards' effects. You can pay 1,000 life points, send one monster on the field to the graveyard. Once per turn during the end phase, send this card to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon one the Winged Dragon of Ra sphere mode from your hand, deck, or graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions. Alright, so both those effects are mandatory. You are going to have to summon the Immortal Phoenix. It won't even prompt you. If Ra goes to your graveyard while Immortal Phoenix is in your graveyard, and when Immortal Phoenix leaves the field at the end of the turn, you will get a sphere mode. You can choose where it comes from, but you will get a sphere mode. It's important to note that cards with the same name cannot go on the stack at the same time for the same trigger. And what I mean by that is, if you have two Immortal Phoenixes in your graveyard, and Ra goes to the graveyard, even though the effect is mandatory, because they share a name, they don't both come back. Only one of them comes back at per time that Ra goes to the graveyard. But you can't have two of them on the field at the same time, which is very important. Basically, we want to send Ra to the graveyard while Immortal Phoenix is in our graveyard, bring Immortal Phoenix back, and attack our opponent directly with it. And during turn 1, we want to summon Immortal Phoenix and then end our turn, so it turns into Sphere Mode. And Sphere Mode is this card. The Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode. Cannot be special summoned, requires 3 tributes from either side of the field to normal summon to that side of the field, then shift control of that card's owner during the end phase of the next turn. Cannot attack. Your opponent cannot target this card for attacks or by card effects. You can tribute this card, special summon one the Winged Dragon of Ra from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, and if you do, its attack and defense become 4,000. Primarily what you do with this card is you make it going first, and you pass to your opponent. Your opponent cannot target this card with card effects, and they can't attack it. So they have to remove it from the field some other way. There are a lot of options. They can Dark Hole it. They can play Dingirsu, Orchestra of the Evening Star, because that just sends a card to the graveyard. They can Kaiju it. If they're playing Red Eyes, I know some Red Eyes players run Fisher. There's not too many meta options, but there are plenty of tech options that meta decks could start running. I'm just not seeing a lot of it right now. It's important to note that because this card cannot be targeted or attacked, Tenyi and Ubel have 0 outs to this card. 0. I have seen Tenyi and Ubel draw through their entire deck, dig for every possible option. They're just don't have the options. They have Boxia, they have Vishuda, both of those target. They have the Shaman, which requires you to declare an attack. You can't declare an attack if there's no attack target. Yubel has super polymerization. Sphere Mode is a divine monster. There are no super polymerization targets for divine. So there's nothing they can do. It's great. It feels really good. And this is why I'm strongly encouraging this. Because since Tenyi is still considered a tier 1 deck, if Ra is such a hard counter to Tenyi, then I think that there is no option for Ra to be except tier 2, because it will be seen play as a deck that counters the tier 1 deck and is good enough against the other decks. It's really bad against Constellar, but it remains to be seen how much of a representation Constellar will have. I do think that people are still going to keep using Tenyi quite a lot. So as long as Tenyi remains popular, as long as Yubel remains popular, and as long as both of those decks remain annoying, this is the deck you want to play with. Ra is just a card that we use to kind of go into our Phoenix. You can pay 1,000 life points to target one monster on the field and destroy that target. This can target Ra itself, and this is a way that you can destroy Ra to trigger the Phoenix effect. Basically all you need to know about Ra. Kiteroid, it's a good card to keep yourself alive if you don't draw any combo pieces. Millennium Revelation. You can send one Divine Beast monster from your hand to the graveyard. Add one Monster Reborn from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can send this face-up card to the graveyard. This turn you can summon Ra from your graveyard with Monster Reborn, ignoring the summoning conditions. During the end phase of the turn this effect was activated, you must send the Winged Dragon of Ra you control with special summon with Monster Reborn to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Millennium Revelation once per turn. So, that's cool. It's a cool card. I like it. You just use this to set up your graveyard. You're going to make sure that you have both Ra and Phoenix in your graveyard. One of them is probably going to be discarded by the skill. The other one's going to be discarded by Revelation. You get your Monster Reborn and you start blasting. Monster Reborn is required for the deck to work. You use this to revive Ra and then you start off. The skill lets you get it back, which is nice because it's a cost for Dark Spell Regeneration. MST, this is a good card. Just play MST and get rid of all your opponent's threats before you start your combo. Make sure that you don't get Cosmic or anything like that. The True Sun God. When this card is activated, add one Winged Dragon of Ra or one card that mentions it from your deck to your hand, except the True Sun God. So that's really good. You activate this card, you draw Ra or Phoenix mode, and then you activate the skill, send those to the graveyard to draw whatever else you need. And that way you can set up your graveyard, make sure that you're good to go. Monsters, except the Winged Dragon of Ra, cannot attack the turn they are special summon. That's very important. That means that your opponent has to get through both the True Sun God and Sphere Mode on turn 1. Because if they get through the Sphere Mode, but you have True Sun God out, they can only attack with the monster they normal summon. It's pretty useful. Once per turn during your main phase, you can send this card from the field, or one Winged Dragon of Ra Immortal Phoenix from your deck to the graveyard, then send the Winged Dragon of Ra from your monster zone to the graveyard. And there you go, that's how you get Immortal Phoenix in your graveyard, and how you send Ra to the graveyard to trigger the Immortal Phoenix. This is a really useful effect. It's going to be how your turn 1 goes. Lastly, we have Dark Spell Regeneration. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, target one spell card in your opponent's graveyard and set it to your field. That's almost never going to happen. You can banish this card from your graveyard and send one Monster Reborn from your hand, or set on the field to the graveyard. Special summon one the Winged Dragon of Ra from your graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions. Then you can send one monster your opponent controls to the graveyard. Also send that special summon monster to the graveyard during the end phase. This is really, really powerful. So, Dark Spell Regeneration allows you to discard Monster Reborn to basically use Monster Reborn on your opponent's turn. Now you have to send it to the graveyard for that to work, so try ditching it with a skill, because activating it's really hard. When you revive your Ra, you will also get to send a card your opponent controls to the graveyard. And that will allow you to interrupt their plays. It will allow you to get rid of a dangerous threat before it can activate its effect. It will allow you to get another copy of Sphere Mode on the field, because as soon as Ra leaves the field, it brings back your Phoenix, which will also summon a new Sphere Mode from your deck, and then you have 2 Sphere Modes. So that's really strong. Yeah, this is a great card, and that's the gist of the deck. There's no extra decks, so let's go ahead and check the replay. Alright, we are going first. Our hand contains, so I was testing the Endymion packaging that a lot of other people are using, and I found it wasn't worth it, so. Alright, so we're going to start, we're going to activate the True Sun God, and we're going to draw the Immortal Phoenix. Then we activate the skill. We send Immortal Phoenix from hand and Dark Spell Regeneration from deck to graveyard. Then we activate Millennium Revelation and use to discard Ra and draw Monster Reborn. Send Millennium Revelation to graveyard to use the second effect. Activate Monster Reborn, revive Ra. Activate True Sun God, mill the second copy of our Immortal Phoenix to revive it. Then we use the skill to get our Monster Reborn back. End turn, Immortal Phoenix Ra replaces itself with Sphere Mode. And it's our opponent's turn. Vapora. Go into Monk. Adhara. Go into Shaman. Shaman. Get into Berserker. Heavenly Dragon Circle, draw Shuna. Shuna. Normal summon the Adhara, go into Draco Berserker. Ashuna, summon the Shithana from deck. At this point, my opponent gains 2,000 life points, but what are they going to do? They can't do anything. They've summoned their almighty Tenyi board with the double Berserker, but they can't attack. They can't remove it from the field. They can't target it. They can't do anything. So he gains his 2,000 life points and he passes it back to me. Draw. Sphere Mode effect. We tribute the Sphere Mode to Special Summon Ra. Our opponent will immediately effect Veiler this. That doesn't matter. We activate Dark Spell Regeneration. We are going to discard our Monster Reborn to revive the other Ra from our graveyard. Then we get to send the Draco Berserker of the Tenyi to the graveyard. Now, it's important to note that both the send effect of Winged Dragon of Ra Immortal Phoenix and of Dark Spell Regeneration do not target. So Mapora can't stop it. The monster's not being destroyed, which means Shithana doesn't activate. And now we have our Ra out. So we can go ahead and send the Immortal Sun God to the graveyard to bring back Immortal Phoenix. Pay 1,000. Draco Berserker banishes, but our card's unaffected, so it doesn't matter. Pay another 1,000. Attack directly twice. And that is game. So there you go. An extremely powerful monster, an extremely powerful board, an extremely unoutable turn one. You will win games with this deck, I swear. I hope you enjoy the replay. My name is Srafi, and I'm thrilled to have you all with me.